Hello everyone, and welcome back for another edition of the Money Pros. I'm Oliver Tutt, Certified Financial Planner Practitioner, and I'll be your host for the next half hour as we talk about all the issues related to your money, how to make it, how to keep it, and hopefully how to help it grow. Lots to get to on today's show, so let me tell you what we have in store for you. First up, you ever wonder or have a philosophy on at what age kids should start paying their own bills? I mean, I think it's a widely accepted practice that we pay our kids' bills right up until a certain point. That point varies for a lot of people. There's an interesting survey that came out. It's interesting to see based on demographics when different demographic populations think that their kids should start being responsible for their own bills, and specifically what bills at different ages. So we're going to talk about that in the first segment. In our second segment, we're going to be talking about estate planning. We have our estate planning pro, Bridget Mullaney, attorney and partner with Cameron Mittleman, and she's going to be here to talk to us about some of the perils of do-it-yourself estate planning. I mean, this show, after all, is the money pros, not the money amateurs, so we are biased in that respect. There's some important things to keep in mind when you're looking at your estate planning. We're going to talk to Bridget about those things. In the third segment, are you wasting money on subscriptions? You can get a subscription to just about anything nowadays, and they can be a giant money suck. So we're going to talk about some of those things and how to manage some of that stuff so you're, fiscally responsible with all the things you sign up for, commitments on a monthly basis. So we'll get to that in the third segment. So let's leap right into things and talk about the idea of what age, at what point do you expect kids to start paying their own bills? And of course, this is most relevant to your own kids, because I'm sure you're all thinking about, for those of you that have kids that you're funding at this point, at what point in time they're going to be off the payroll, so to speak. And this is a really important financial planning conversation because kids are so expensive. God bless them, we love them, but ultimately you have other financial obligations that you'll have to handle. Those things include retirement planning, and once the kids start paying their own bills, then you have more freedom to do some of the stuff that you need to do. So interesting survey that came out from bankrate.com, so we want to talk about that. And I think one of the things it points out is that the golden age is not necessarily 18 for a lot of people. And what you find is that the age at which people expect to have their kids paying their own bills varies depending on what age you're talking about the adults in this conversation. So we have the first bill up here, and that's a car payment. So what we're looking at in this particular column is, the first column is for those people aged 23 to 38. At what age do they think people should start paying their own car payment? And the consensus age there was 20. Now, when you move on to folks that are 55 to 73, generally accepted as baby boomers, or considered baby boomers, that age drops to 19. But then when you ask people that are age 74 or older, that age jumps up to 20. Let's look at another payment, and we'll talk about it. Cell phones. Now, this is a smaller bill. Well, sometimes it's a smaller bill. Cell phone bills are getting pretty extreme these days. You look at that age 23 to 38 category, people think you should be 20 before you pay your own cell phone bill. Now you get to the baby boomers again, 55 to 73, they think it's down to 18. As soon as you turn 18, the cell phone bill's on you. And then you go back to the age 74 plus, age 19, so again an older age. Next one, housing. Now this is a big one, whether it's your rent or mortgage or whatever it is. That age group 23 to 38, they think 22 years old before you should be responsible for that cost. But if you talk to baby boomers in that middle column, they're thinking 21, and also 21 for the age group 74 plus. And the final category we'll talk about, and I would point out that the Bankrate survey talked about a lot of categories. I'm being selective here. This is a big one, student loans. 23 to 38-year-olds think that 23 years old is the point at which you should be responsible for your student loans. Age 55 to 73, that age drops to 22. So baby boomers again think it's younger at which point you should be responsible for that bill. And then age 74 plus, back up to 23. So some of the interesting things that are pointed out in this survey, one is that the highest age for a particular expense is health insurance, where the average age across all categories was the age of 23 before people thought that kids should be responsible for that particular expense. Baby boomers, as we just pointed out, consistently had the lowest age expectation at which they thought kids should take over particular bills. So I think that that's an interesting thing to point out. The other thing is, some people might think, well, it depends on how wealthy the household is. Households with more money might float their kids longer. Households with less money maybe expect their kids to take over at a younger age. Actually, the survey determined that that was not the case. In fact, across the board, households with lower incomes, the expectation was higher ages at which time kids would take over their bills. So you got to wrestle with your own thoughts here. There's no right or wrong answer, but it could play an important role in your future financial planning as well as your kids. So that's it on that topic. Up next, we're going to be talking estate planning with Bridget Mullaney at Cameron Mittleman. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Money Pros. With us now is our estate planning pro, Bridget Mullaney with Cameron Mittleman. Great to have you back. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, interesting topic, I think, and I think it's definitely a temptation for a lot of people. We want to talk about, I titled it, The Perils of the Do-It-Yourself Estate Plan. And as I mentioned in the intro, the show is called The Money Pros. I think all of us in our respective fields are biased toward using professionals, certainly when the situation merits. And I think about all the different things we handle. Estate planning is definitely probably one of those situations. So let's talk about first what you consider to be the do-it-yourself estate plan, because it's not just necessarily getting some documents in a box off online. There's a lot of different variations of DIY estate planning, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably the most common is the online ones, such as LegalZoom is a popular one. You can also print out forms. There's some statutory forms that people will look up, and you can Google pretty much any form for any document that you want. And also just people who simply want to handwrite their wills and their wishes, and they think that is sufficient for, instructions for how they want their assets to pass.
So it's not surprising that people would consider doing it themselves. I mean, as you just pointed out, these documents are widely available, generic versions of all kinds of things, from simple wills to trusts and powers of attorney and all of that stuff. Why do you think it is people consider that as an option when they're sort of saying, well, I know I need this stuff, maybe I'm going to go online and sort it out myself? Why do you think people do that?
I mean, I think one of the biggest reasons is the cost.
Sure.
It's certainly an investment to hire an attorney to do your estate plan. And I think people say that, you can go on and say, oh, I can spend $300 and have a will, a trust, powers of attorney, and that's sufficient. I think the other piece of it is sometimes just the quickness.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit there and say, oh, I'm going on a plane tomorrow and I don't have anything. So, people will go online and just do something quick because, it's not, you can't get a document done that quickly when you meet with an attorney. So
I wonder if, I certainly agree with all those things, and I've seen them in my own clients. I wonder if part of it too is just the inertia of, just like anything, whether it's calling a landscaper or your doctor or whatever, you have to reach out. Yeah. You have to schedule the appointment. You have to go through the process of going into the meeting, and then you have to talk about some stuff that may be uncomfortable. So I wonder if people feel a little more comfort anonymously online filling out these documents.
I think that's certainly a piece of it too. I mean, it's much easier to just sit behind a desk and do it as opposed to talking to someone.
So a comment that I've heard many times, and I'm sure you've heard it much more than I, is, I don't really need to go to an attorney to do this because I have a quote-unquote simple estate plan. Why is it that, even when things at first blush might seem simple, they're not quite as simple as they might seem?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very common thing that I have people call, I just need a simple will. And I can honestly say, in probably a handful of times, that people actually truly only need a simple will. And I think the thing that they don't consider is, what's going on and what's the family dynamics? Is it a second marriage? Is it some other type of blended family? Are you unmarried and have a partner? Do your children have any type of financial issues, spending? Mm-hmm. Do they have good marriages? Do you have a child with special needs? And I think a lot of those things people don't consider. I think the other thing is, they don't think of what, in terms of assets, they're not thinking of tax consequences, because a lot of people forget they have life insurance, which can very easily push someone over the estate tax thresholds, and they don't consider them accessible assets, so they don't even factor that in.
I find, as I've sat through these meetings, it's typical that you're, as the attorney, going to ask a lot of questions of the family members that are there, and then you ask, well, how do you want to handle the situation? And I think in every meeting I've ever been in, there's been some reaction to the effect of, oh, I didn't really think about that, and sort of points out that you may well go in thinking you have it all drawn out in your head, but just a few questions from a professional and you realize maybe you didn't evaluate all the different scenarios that could take place. Let's talk about the real risks, like the things that if I decided to do my own estate plan, what are some of the risks I face? Because there are a lot of different ways it can go wrong. Can you talk to us about some of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest risks is you do it and their documents are just not signed with the proper formalities. It's a fairly basic thing that you learn about is a will has to be executed with. You have to have a certain number of witnesses. You have to do it in a certain way. And when you do it online, they may put in the correct number of witnesses, but you may use the wrong type of witnesses. You may use a relative, and if you don't execute them properly, it's almost like doing nothing at all. I think the other thing, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, was just from a tax perspective is, you don't do a tax planning. So you end up, for clients who have meet those thresholds, all of a sudden they could be paying an estate tax, which they could have easily avoided. I think the other thing is you do have clients who try to handwrite their wills. I mean, we have celebrities who do it, and oftentimes they're trying to do it to avoid conflict, and they create more conflict, and there's multiple ones, and they write, they try to make pictures and change things and cross things out, and it adds a lot of confusion. You
talked about a fairly famous example relatively recently of Aretha Franklin.
Correct.
What went wrong there?
So when she passed away, they went to court and said that she didn't have a will, and then they discovered in a locked closet, as well as in a notebook stuffed under, I think it was a couch, 3 different handwritten wills, and they were contradicting. They weren't saying the same thing, and it started creating a lot of issues. And now it's in the courts, and you have to authenticate the writing. Is it actually her handwriting, and was it signed with the proper formalities? And that's going to have a big impact on how her estate is distributed.
And I think that highlights one of the other risks of doing it yourself. It seems to me, and I think most people would agree, that part of doing an estate plan is, after all, the idea is it's for when you're gone, so you're not really going to benefit from it. The benefit you get out of it is feeling like your survivors are going to be taken care of and taken through things in a streamlined fashion. And if they have to walk into court with handwritten estate planning documents that are being challenged by different family members, you haven't streamlined their life.
Correct.
You've made it that much worse on top of your own passing. So you're not getting that benefit out of it that I think most people hope, because why else would you do estate planning? After all, you're gone. What do you care what happens, right?
And I think that's the hard thing with many other things that you try to do. If you try to do your taxes on your own, usually if you make a mistake, the IRS is going to figure it out and you can fix it. With estate planning, when you do the documents, you're not going to know that there's going to be an error until it's too late, and you can't do anything to correct it. And I think that's the real benefit of when you're hiring an attorney to do it. You're not hiring them to fill out a form. You're hiring them for the advice as to giving you suggestions for how you can better do things, or knowing the particular situations of your individual family. Okay, maybe we should do it this route, or this could help, minimize any risk of fighting between your children or so forth. So that's really what you're paying for, is really that advice of having someone who's been doing this for years and has administered estates on the other end and knows what problems can come up.
What's your take on, and this is my personal opinion, but that one of the other big advantages to utilizing an estate planning attorney is, again, not while you're alive, but when you pass, those relatives, in my experience, need a lot of hand-holding. They're overwhelmed by the passing, even if it's a parent, maybe it was something that was expected, like an older age person or whatever. God forbid if it's a younger family or anything like that. The value of the advice after the individual passes, to walk somebody through the process of, hey, you're the executor. This is, you said you'd do it, but here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Or the trustee, or how do I handle this, or how does this bill get paid, or who's responsible for this? Like, how important do you think that is?
I think it's critical. I mean, when you have a good thought out estate plan, you're leaving good instructions for what's supposed to happen, and you're giving the instructions to your administrator, executor, and trustee, and it's important to have them know what they're supposed to do and having an attorney who can guide them through that process. Makes it a lot quicker. I think sometimes people want to save money on the front end, but frankly, you end up spending a lot more money on the back end if you don't do it right from the beginning.
So I guess we'll leave it with this point, but would you say it's fair to say that, like with a lot of things, you can do it yourself, and it won't necessarily be a disaster, but it's a pretty big risk you're running if you choose to go down that road.
I think if you're doing your own estate plan, you need to proceed with caution when you do it. So.
All right, Bridget, great advice, and I think I'm going to reconsider doing a handwritten will and leaving it in my closet at least. So thank you very much. All right, up next we're going to be talking about subscriptions and how they can be a real burden on your pocketbook. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Money Pros. So my question for you is, are you wasting money on monthly subscriptions? Wealth can be made and lost in big ways and small ways. And we basically talk about all of that on the Money Pros. I mean, that's essentially the topic of the show. But what I find is that the big ways that we can make and lose money are the things we tend to pay the most attention to. Obviously, they're the most impactful. But it's some of the smaller things, like the lunch out every day or the Starbucks coffee every morning, that can really bleed your finances in some subtle but significant ways. And one of those things I would put in that category are monthly subscriptions. I detest anything that gets billed to me automatically on a monthly basis. Now, listen, I understand there are certain things that we kind of generally accept, and we need to have, people are auto-paying their mortgages, their utility bills, all kinds of things along those lines, cell phone bills, all sorts of things. So I understand that. I'm not militant about it. But it's easy to have monthly bills that are auto-billed to you creep into your finances that go far beyond the basic ones that I just talked about. Some of the subscription services are really going over the top, and those monthly financial obligations can become significant. Now, we have the traditional ones. We have cable, we have cell phones. Kind of traditional now, wasn't traditional necessarily 10 years ago, but all these streaming services. So you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Spotify, Pandora, all of those things have really entered the mainstream in terms of monthly subscriptions where they're automatically billing your credit card or your bank account, and you're paying for automatically whether you use them or not. But it's gone way beyond that. You can do things like meals delivered to your door on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. You can get clothing. People just, the company will just send you outfits, and you've got to send them back if you don't want them. Razors, you got the Razor of the Month Club, and you can, those come to you on a regular basis. Things like snacks. The list is endless of stuff you can sign up for, and it'll be sent to you and charged to you automatically whether you use it or not. So here are some of the things to consider as you're working through your monthly subscriptions. Let's throw up a slide and we'll talk about each one of these things. The first one is pay as you go, at least at first. That's my advice to you. So if there's something you're interested in, whether it's a streaming service or it is, snacks to your office, every week, or whatever the thing is, try to do it on a pay-as-you-go basis, at least in the beginning. I recognize that the come-on for a lot of these subscription services is the idea that it's cheaper if you sign up for it on a 6-month or 12-month or more basis. But it's really expensive if you sign up for something that you don't use on a regular basis. So if you can do it on a pay-as-you-go basis, at least initially, and evaluate how much you use it or like it. That's a lot healthier than signing up for bill me every month and I'll let you know if I decide I don't want it anymore. Next one is consider alternatives. If you're going to do these subscription services, consider maybe not doing every single one of them. So do you need Spotify and Pandora, or maybe can you do one of them? Can you do Amazon Prime or Netflix? Can you get rid of cable and only do streaming services? So things along those lines. And then the final thing, let me throw it up for you. Clean house if you don't use it. One of the worst things about these subscription services is they're invasive. So you sign up for it, you use it a little bit, then you forget about it. But you don't go through the effort of going online or calling the company or doing whatever it is to turn the service off. So to make it easy, now ideally you'd go online, you'd remember your password, you'd say I don't want this anymore, likely they're going to try to retain you or whatever the thing is. But you can always tell your credit card company that you no longer want to honor this charge, and they will take it off of your credit card and stop it. So clean house, go through your statements, figure it out what it is that you're using and not using, and don't pay for things that you don't need. All right, that's my speech on subscription services, one of my pet peeves. All right, stay with us, there's more to come. Take care. Welcome back to the Money Pros. That's about all the time we have for today's show, but we do want to give you the opportunity to ask us questions. Whether it's me or another one of the pros on the show, there's a lot of easy ways that you can get in touch with us. Not only ask questions, but also give us story ideas or anything else that you're interested in hearing from. First one is you can visit us on Facebook. We've got a very active Facebook page. Send us a message, an IM if you like, or just post on the page and let us know what you think, and we'd love to hear from you. The other way is you can go to foxprovidence.com, look for the Money Pros, then you can click on Ask a Pro. All those messages come directly to me. I respond to all my messages, and I'm happy to get back to you with the best information I can. And then finally, you can send us an email, moneypros@foxprovidence.com. But however you choose to get in touch with us, we encourage you to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from our viewers, love to know that you're watching, and love to know what you're interested in hearing about. So that's it for today's show. Thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next weekend right here on the Money Pros. Take care and have a great weekend, folks.